Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Welcome in to your holy day meeting. High honors to everyone who made it to the national call, which we moved ahead because of the current state of events that was going on in the country. We decided to bump it up. It was supposed to be this Friday, but we moved it ahead because we know there was a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. Alhamdulillah. Hope everyone is, just staying up to date with what is going on and being in tune, not for fear, not for sake of, anything other than, alhamdulillah, being aware of your surroundings. Excuse me, pardon myself. Get a sip of water, alhamdulillah. We are in week, I believe like 40, 45. We are in the divine origins of the Asiatic nation. And I want to talk about what Noble Drew Ali, what we just read when we read over before we get into this, to the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. When Noble Drew Ali was telling us, watch these ones who speak against the divine and national principles of your temple. And the reason I want to bring this up is we have Act 1 of the Divine Constitution and Bylaws, which says, the Grand Sheik and the chairman are empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body. But yet, so many times we look on social media and we see people arguing about people living with their own customs, which is allowed in the Moorish Science Temple of America. And this is a big thing that we, as we mature, as we reach a state of maturity in our community, we have to understand that people are gonna have different customs. If we look at it from, Noble Drew Ali said he's gonna lead a European long enough here to teach us how to run government. It's like state and federal. Each state got its own laws. You get what I'm saying? But there's federal laws, which are more like universal laws that all the states to some degree agree about and some they don't agree about, right? Because the state has power to fight the feds on a certain case. But nevertheless, what I'm saying is when Act 1, when we say we have our own laws and our own customs that each temple is able to make with conjunctive law. So that's something for Morris to study. What is conjunctive law? That means your law has to be based on something the prophet has already established. As long as your law is within that framework, it's allowable, it's agreeable. And so too many times we see people arguing over what we call unity of mind. We all got to think the same. And I read this and I want to start with this about nationhood because this is what we're here to do and this is what we're here to build. And in these trying times, in these times of upheaval and change, like our harbinger told us, be ready. So that way when these things do change, you can enter into this new era as ones to who are able to enjoy these things. So nationhood, it's important to know what a nation is because many people think nationhood is all we all got the same bloodline or we all come from the same tribe, and that's just not the case. Because if you look at any nation in the world, you see that's not the case. Are all Chinamen from the same tribe? Are all Chinamen from the same bloodline? No, they have different tribes and different nations, and they came together and formed a nation. And even in the case of people move to nations who aren't from that nation and become members of that nation. So nationhood isn't just based on the concept of having the same blood or the concept of having necessarily the same way of thinking about things. Actually, in all actuality, a nation will die if everyone thinks the same. It doesn't. Everyone thinking the same doesn't allow for innovation. It doesn't allow for growth. And we all know, scientifically speaking, anything that's stagnating is closer to death than life. Once you stop growing, it's like when you make it to the top of a mountain, you hit the peak. Once you hit the peak, only thing left to do is to come down. You can't go past the peak. Any nation that hits its peak, only thing left to do is decline. So if everyone starts to think the same, that means you've peaked. And the only thing left for you to do is fall. So just want to read something about nationhood as we get as we're on the chapter on the divine origins of the Asiatic nation. As we come into this sense of maturity, and remember, I'm drawing this back to what Noble Drew Ali said in that warning. He said, "Man, these people speak against your temple's principles. That means there shouldn't be any infighting. You get what I'm saying? This temple does that. This temple does. As long as it's not something that's unallowed, disrespectful, and outside of the bounds of what has been established, it's okay. It's okay to have differences. It's actually very healthy. You get what I'm saying? Seeking refuge in Allah from the outcast, the curse one, the devil. In the Holy Quran of Mecca, God says, for the people understanding, they see that God made things with different shapes and different colors and all these different things. And he also says, I made you in different tribes and nations, not so y'all would argue about things only so y'all can respect and show the appreciation of what I've given each one of you. So differences is a way to appreciate what you have and appreciate what they have. But let's get into this. Just want to make sure that in the back of your minds, the reason we're getting into this is what Noble Drew Ali said, speaking on the principles of each different temple, and also remember in Act 1 that each temple has its right to have its own customs. It's allowed. And not only that, people be like, well, you come from this body, I come from this body. And they have this argument, but this isn't how Moorish science is set up. Not only that, our teachings teach against that. It says, nobody, unless their power extends beyond the great universal God Allah, can change man's descendant nature. Your temple where you come from is your descent nature line. You can't change what temple you came from. You can't change what lineage you learned more science from. So why are we not able to have unity about these things when we have the lessons in our more science, in our teachings, right? In our Islamism that teaches us that no one can change man from his descent nature line, but yet we see people, well, you come from that lineage, you come from this lineage, you do this, we do that. And it doesn't allow for anyone, you know what I'm saying, to grow or to have true unity because we're arguing about things we can't change. I can't change that, you know, my grand sheik came from here and his grand sheik came from there and their grand sheik learned it from this. I can't change that things split up 100 years ago before I was even born. And then this is how I came into more science. But yet it's people who try to invalidate temples, invalidate work, and invalidate the ability for us to unify based on these things that we cannot change. Even our teachings, like I said, say that your power would have to extend beyond the creator, the universal God Allah, to change those things. So it's not something we should be bickering about. It's not something we should be holding the generation that came after accountable for, or the generation that came before us, because law governs all events. These things were supposed to happen, and this is why in the chapters Noble Drew Ali said, you know, he's the founder of the Uniting of the Moorish Science Temple of America. For something to be united, it had to be broken or separated. Let's not say broken, but at least separate. You get what I'm saying? So he, in his wisdom, already knew the separation, because it was separation during his time, that we would have to be united. So as Moors come in with their eyes wide open, I just want to say these are the things we have to heal, and these are the things as we the ones who bear the light and go out and teach the light. We gotta teach. Hey, we gotta stop that. That's not. We can't even change where you come from and where you got your moral science from. Is not important. I'm glad you know it. Let's take our portions, put them together, and work together, because that's what makes a nation. How's their Chinatowns in all of these different states? How are they? Because these people, irrespective of where they came from in China, what they do, they come together, like Noble Drew Ali said, you Moors need to live next to each other. They live next to each other, they put resources together, and they work for common goals. So now I want to read more about nationhood. Just wanted to kind of lay the foundation as we get into our divine origins, that we see a lot of people they say they Moors, but they still have a colonized mindset, because what are they doing? In their own communities, they doing divide and conquer. Nah, that temple, the ink, they was from over there to reincarnate, that doesn't matter. You can't change where you got this from. You can't change your lineage. None of us can. So why would that be a factor of us not being able to unify? Because I'm from Ohio and this is where we had over here, or I'm from California and this is what we had, or I'm from Chicago, and it doesn't make sense. That's not how unity works. If that was the case, nobody could be able to unify, because all people have different lineages to a certain extent, or come from different places to a certain extent. Nationhood as a community, the nation as a community. The nation is one of the main types of community, a community that has reached a high degree of maturity. And I just want to take a second and let that, as a comedian said, let that sizzle in our spirit. A nation is a type of community that has reached a high degree of maturity. That's very important for us to understand, because mature people are able to communicate in spite of differences, and even able to work with people in spite of differences. Another word we can use for maturity is professionalism. People who work together don't like each other, don't necessarily have the same ideas about anything, but they have a common goal, whether it's a hospital or whatever job they're working at, that we come together to achieve the mission. A nationhood is the same way. It's not about buddy rubbing elbows. It's about, we got a goal and we got things to do. So the nation is one of the main types of community, a community which has reached a high degree of maturity, which is engaged in a large number of activities and which encompasses not only a number of individuals but also a number of smaller communities. Yet, the nation is a community not based on purely natural foundation, for example, blood, nor is it an extension of a natural community, for example, a tribe. It is rather the result of a historical integrative process. By virtue of this process, many groups which were once different and even relatively independent of one another have been brought together to the point where they have become united by an intense and active solidarity by living together. These groups have acquired common habits, customs, traditions, and ways of life. But a nation, of course, is more than a group of individuals having common habits, customs, traditions, and a common form of life. In order to compromise a nation, the individuals must behave in such a way as to express their will, conscious or unconscious, to live closely together in order to undertake, develop, and achieve common enterprises which are felt to reflect the historic destiny of the particular national group. Many nations possess a common language, a common origin, and a common culture, a common religion, or common folkways and traditions. On the other hand, many other nations include substantial numbers of individuals and groups of diverse languages, origins, cultures, religions, or folkways and traditions. The fact that a nation belongs to the latter category does not alter its status, for it is what for it is what its constituent individuals and groups have in common, rather than what they have alike, that engenders the sense of belonging together. That sentiment of sharing a common destiny and the striving to fulfill a common task, that these are the basic ingredients of a nation. So he says this active solidarity exists only when all individuals and communities which make up the nation are united together for the fulfillment of a common task in which they are all concerned. So he said the basics of nationhood is not that we all have the same customs and traditions, even though many do and some don't. Some nations all have the same traditions. Some nations is many different groups with none of the same customs, not even the same languages. But yet he said they come together, and what makes them a nation is the fulfillment of tasks. We all need hospitals. We all need food security. We all need better jobs, as Noble Drew Ali. Economic security is not preached in our community as much as it needs to be. We need better jobs for our men and women, better schools for our children, better education. These are the things that makes nationhood. Also, what makes nationhood, right? A big point of nationhood is, what do we just realize about this nation? The termination of services, SNAP benefits, and these things, and all. A nation offers services to its constituents. You see, we all saw, if we were in the temple's time during the time of COVID, that it was an influx of people during the COVID times because the nation wasn't offering services. So where did people go to? Somewhere they felt like they could what? Get their services. Many people in leadership also usually say it's hard to get our people out of the system because the system gives them stuff and we don't have anything to give them. See, a big part of nationhood is being able to offer services, achieve goals for the people. So I just want to once again put out what it means, what level of maturity we have to reach. And I hope, what I was talking about as far as our divine, our descent nature line, and all these things that sometimes we see what I like to call the online Moorish community arguing about has nothing to do with anything, and it's not something that should be dividing or separating us. And once we reach a level of maturity, we'll realize that our lessons teach us the very opposite of what we're doing. Our lessons say you can't change that, so why are we arguing about somebody about their lineage? Like, hey man, that's your mama. Like he could be like, no, man, or you could check. That's your daddy. No, I'm gonna get no, they not. You can't change these things. And we talking about your spiritual, and I ain't talking about your real mom and dad, but the way you would brought into this science. Because when you come into this science, it says Quran questions for Moorish children. So you could look at your grand sheik or anything like a spiritual father in a sense. You get what I'm saying? So alhamdulillah, I just wanted to point these things out so we can mature and we can start to, as we go out and we be around other Moors, put these ideas in the atmosphere, bear this light in it, you know what I'm saying? Put this out so we can heal some of these things that, are old traumatic wounds that we didn't even go through. How bad is it to be suffering from generational trauma, even though we know it's passed down through blood, but a lot of these things we didn't experience, so we can move past them. We could heal them, God willing.